Hello, this is Willie from the Ozarks, and we are on, let's see, this is April the 6th, lesson 96. And lesson 96, salvation comes from my one self. Salvation comes from my one self. Before we start that lesson, let's just talk briefly about yesterday's lesson. Lesson 95. Did you tell everybody you met silently or out loud? You are one self with me, united with our Creator in this self. I honor you because of what I am and what He is, who loves us both as one. And in this lesson 95, I am one self, united with my Creator. We were to tell ourselves at the beginning of our 5-minute practice periods, I am one self, united with my Creator, at one with every aspect of creation, and limitless in power and in peace. And then we were to use that first 5 minutes of every waking hour to bring that to mind. Now, he told us that we didn't have to, and that we might not be willing to, and that sometimes we just wouldn't be able to. But he said, try to at least remember it hourly. And I wanted to bring our attention just why he wants us to do this. In paragraph 4, he says, the use of the first 5 minutes of every waking hour for practicing the idea for the day has special advantages at the stage of learning in which you are at present. It is difficult at this point not to allow your mind to wander if it undertakes extended attempts. You have surely realized this by now. You have seen the extent of your lack of mental discipline and of your need for mind training. It is necessary that you be aware of this, for it is indeed a hindrance to your advance. The fact that we can't keep our minds focused on one thing for long periods of time, he says, is a hindrance to our advance. He also says, in addition to recognizing your difficulties with sustained attention, you must have noticed that unless you are reminded of your purpose frequently, you tend to forget it for long periods of time. You often fail to remember the short applications of the day and have not yet formed the habit of using it as an automatic response in times of temptation. Okay, so we will therefore keep to the 5 minute an hour practice periods for a while and urge you to omit as few as possible. Use the first 5 minutes of the hour. Using the first 5 minutes of the hour will be particularly helpful since it imposes firmer structure. Do not, however, use your lapse from this schedule as an excuse not to return to it again as soon as you can. Now, if you're in a school setting, and generally the classes change at the top of the hour, well, then that's an ideal time to get to your next class quickly and sit down and close your eyes and be at peace for a moment. But anyway, he's saying that we have two needs there. One, we haven't learned to stay focused on one thing for long periods of time, and 5 minutes is about enough. The other reason is because if we at least bring our attention every hour to the exercise, at least we're going to be thinking about it. Well, he also says that, therefore, using the first, he says, do not, however, use your lapse from this schedule as an excuse not to return to it again as soon as you can. There may well be temptation to regard the day as lost if you fail to do what's required, but this should however, merely be recognized as what it is, a refusal to not let your mistakes be corrected and an unwillingness to try again. The Holy Spirit is not delayed by your teaching, by the Holy Spirit is not delayed in his teaching by your mistakes. He can be held back only by your unwillingness. So, an unwillingness to let your mistakes go. Let us therefore be determined, particularly for the next week or so, to be willing to forgive ourselves for our lapses in diligence and our failure to follow the instructions for practicing the idea for the day. All right, so we don't want to waste the whole day if we missed several hours. When you realize that you missed it, even if it's at the bottom of the hour, well, then do it. That'll be the beginning of your new hour. And try to keep a firmer, rigid, try to keep yourself to the schedule. He does say that regularity in terms of time is not the ideal requirement for the most beneficial form of practice and salvation. It is advantageous, however, for those whose motivation is inconsistent and who remain heavily defended against learning. So we may very likely find ourselves having inconsistent, motivation. And we may be heavily defended against learning. All right? I am one self, united with my Creator, at one with every aspect of creation, and limitless in power and in peace. Let's see. We want to repeat this several times in our lesson. I am one self. You are one self, united and secure in light and joy and peace. You are God's Son, one self with one Creator and one goal, to bring awareness of this oneness to all minds. That true creation may extend the allness and the unity of God. The allness and the unity of God. We want to be extenders of that. That's our function. Wow. Okay, well, before we read our lesson for today now, lesson 96, Salvation Comes from My One Self. Let's take a look here. I have some holy basil, also known as sweet basil. This one here, just regular sweet basil, very, very aromatic. I've got some here that's a large leaf Italian basil. And I also have some red basil. They're both a little younger and not quite as aromatic. Anyway, I was looking. I just kind of looked in general terms. Basil, I've mentioned to you about basil before, but it's about time to put these out. Around here, we say April 15th is last frost day, but last year we had one in the early part of May, which was highly unusual. And if you do put something like this out, and the extended forecast looks like we're not going to have any more frost, and if that's the case, then I can probably go ahead and put these out. But if you do have a frost, throw in a little bit of something over it to protect it. I've inverted a bucket on them occasionally, and if it's going to really get cold, throw a blanket over the bucket. Some straw around the plants is what the old timers used to use, and a little bit of hay fluffed around it. It'll protect them too. Anyway, a number of ways you can do it. But anyway, here I noted it got some things that it says that it's good for. Basil helps against infection, lowers blood sugar, lowers cholesterol, eases joint pain, and protects your stomach. Those are kind of general things. It tastes good, makes good pesto, like I mentioned to you that my son Stephen always seems to make some pesto. We've been experimenting using all kinds of different whole nuts, uh, not just pine nuts, but cashew nuts, and blend them, and then mix your basil in with it, or pecan, and any kind of nut. I don't like using oils. I like to use um, the whole nut, or whatever, avocado, to get some oil. It's amazing. You can take a half of a pecan and put it in a skillet, and take a piece. I use a 2x2 piece of wood, and push it about a foot long, and push down on that pecan, and just take it on a hot black iron skillet. That's what I've done. I used to do it all the time. And you can use that one pecan, half of a pecan, and squeeze enough oil out of it to cook 3 pancakes. Now, that's quite a bit of oil. It just takes a tiny bit. You got to have a really clean, good seasoned black skillet. But it's surprising how much oil really is in a pecan. And all the nuts are highly oily. And having that in a whole, the whole food, not just an oil. Oil, I just don't. I try not to. Dr. McDougall doesn't recommend it, and I think highly of him. Dr. Furman definitely doesn't recommend oils. Dr. McDougall, he says, the oils you eat are the oils you keep. Or he doesn't. Anyway, you put them on your body. Your body just can't burn that much energy. Anyway, basil. Make some pesto. Try some ways without oil, and let me know what you did. Salvation comes from my one self. Let's read this now. Lesson 96. Although you are one self, you experience yourself as two, as both good and evil, loving and hating, mind and body. Mind and body. This sense of being split into opposite induces feelings of acute and constant conflict, and leads to frantic attempts to reconcile the contradictory aspects of this self-perception. You have sought many such solutions, and none of them has worked. The opposites you see in you will never be compatible, but one exists. The fact that truth and illusions cannot be reconciled, no matter how you try, what means you use, and where you see the problem, must be accepted if you would be saved. Until you have accepted this, you will attempt endless lists of goals you cannot reach, a senseless series of expenditures of time and effort, hopefulness and doubt, each one as futile as the one before, and failing as the next one surely will. 3. Problems that have no meaning cannot be resolved within the framework they are set. Two selves in conflict could not be resolved, and good and evil have no meeting place. The self you made can never be yourself, nor can yourself be split in two and still be what it is and must forever be. You have the one self that's created by God that we're trying to reach in our awareness. And then there's the illusory self that we made up based on illusions and self-concepts that he calls idols. We've made an idol of our bodies, and that we're worshiping them. But we're going to forgive that now. We're going to let it go and find out who we really are, our true self, which you already know who you are. Just let it be. It's the most natural thing in all the world. In one place he says, you might even say it's the only natural thing in the world to find God, to be yourself. 4. A mind and body cannot both exist. Make no attempt to reconcile the two. A mind and body cannot both exist. Make no attempt to reconcile the two, for one denies the other can be real. If you are physical, your mind is gone from your self-concept, for it has no place in which it could be really part of you. If you are spirit, then the body must be meaningless to your reality. 5. Spirit makes use of mind as means to find its self-expression. Spirit makes use of mind as means to find its self-expression. And the mind which serves the Spirit is at peace and filled with joy. Its power comes from Spirit, and it is fulfilling happily its function here. Yet mind can also see itself divorced from Spirit and perceive itself within a body it confuses with itself. I think we've pretty much done that one, and that's what we're trying to correct. Without its function, then, it has no peace, and happiness is alien to its thoughts. 6. Yet mind apart from Spirit cannot think. Mind apart from Spirit cannot think. It has denied its source of strength and sees itself as helpless, limited, and weak. Disassociated from its function now, it thinks it is alone and separate, attacked by armies massed against itself, and hiding in the body's frail support. Now must it reconcile unlike with like, for this is what it thinks that it is for. All the confusion that you are a body rather than a mind. 7. Waste no more time on this. Who can resolve the senseless conflicts which a dream presents? He says it's a dream. Remember, I've been telling you. It's a dream we're going to wake up from, thinking that we're a body and that we could die, and that we could be suffering and experience loss. What could the resolution mean in truth? What purpose could it serve? What is it for? Salvation cannot make illusions real and solve a problem that does not exist. Perhaps you hope it can, yet would you have God's plan for the release of His dear Son bring pain to Him and fail to set Him free? No. 8. Yourself retains its thoughts, and they remain within your mind and in the mind of God. The Holy Spirit holds salvation in your mind and offers it the way to peace. Salvation is a thought you share with God because His voice accepted it for you and answered in your name that it was done. Let's read that one again. Yourself retains its thoughts, and they remain within your mind and in the mind of God. That's your true self. The Holy Spirit holds salvation in your mind. The Holy Spirit holds salvation in your mind and offers it the way to peace. Salvation is a thought you share with God. Salvation is a thought you share with God because His voice accepted it for you and answered in your name that it was done. Thus is salvation kept among the thoughts yourself holds dear and cherishes for you. 9. We will attempt today to find this thought that is held with God, whose presence in your mind is guaranteed by Him who speaks to you from your one self. Our hourly 5-minute practicing will be a search for Him within your mind. We're going to look for the Holy Spirit in our mind in those 5-minute practice periods. Salvation comes from this one self through Him who is the bridge between your mind and it. Wow. Okay, let's look at that again. We will attempt today to find this thought, whose presence in your mind is guaranteed by Him who speaks to you from your one self. Our hourly 5-minute practice period will be a search for Him within your mind. Salvation comes from this one self through Him who is the bridge between your mind and it. 10. Wait patiently and let him speak to you about yourself and what your mind can do, restored to it and free to serve its will. Begin by saying this: salvation comes from my one self. Its thoughts are mine to use. Salvation comes from my one self. Its thoughts are mine to use. Then seek its thoughts and claim them as your own. These are your own real thoughts you have denied, and let your mind go wandering in a world of dreams to find illusions in their place. These are your own real thoughts you have denied, and let your mind go wandering in a world of dreams to find illusions in their place. Here are your thoughts, the only ones you have. Salvation is among them. Find it there. Find it there. Salvation in your real thoughts. 15. If you succeed, the thoughts that come to you will tell you you are saved and that your mind has found the function that it sought to lose. Yourself will welcome it and give it peace. Restored in strength, it will again flow out from Spirit to the Spirit in all things created by the Spirit as itself. Your mind will bless all things. Confusion done, you are restored, for you have found yourself. 16. Yourself knows that you cannot fail today. Perhaps your mind remains uncertain yet a little while. Be not dismayed by this. The joy yourself experiences, it will save for you, and it will yet be yours in full awareness. Every time you spend 5 minutes of the hour seeking him who joins your mind and self, you offer him another treasure to be kept for you. And the last paragraph. Each time today you tell your frantic mind salvation comes from your one self, you lay another treasure in your growing store, and all of it is given everyone who asks for it and will accept the gift. Think then how much is given unto you to give this day, that it be given you. All right. Now, even if you're not able to sense that you had some breakthroughs, do those 5 minutes as best you can. At least take a moment of pause every hour. And as he says, the top of the hour is best, which we're assuming is at the hourly change. So, but do the best you can. And what we want to, yourself knows that you cannot fail today. So you'll be making progress whether you actually are recognizing it or not. So until tomorrow, salvation comes from my one self. Its thoughts are mine to use. Let's find those thoughts. Till tomorrow, salvation comes from my one self.